70. The Answer.
Hey, I'm back with Mr. Awesome. But before we go to Mr. Awesome, we were just talking in the break, and Scott wanted to just make sure that he could talk a little bit about the poster and also getting you a phone number that you can call into. So please take it away.
Yeah, real quick. If anyone wants to get in touch with me for sales training, coaching, charge higher prices, secrets, 949-650-0006. That's 949-650-0006.
Operator standing by?
Yeah. And the
Right.
Charge Higher Prices poster, matter of fact, this will segue into Erik because he puts on awesome conferences. And once I was speaking at one of his conferences and I brought this big laminated Charge Higher Prices poster, it was all the rage. And if people want that download, it's chargehigherprices.com/poster. Take it away, Erik Swanson.
And before Erik starts, one of my friends, Lisa, she and I, she's a friend of mine back from Canada, we would always have laminated jokes. So even for me to hear the word.
Laminated.
Yeah,
Laminated.
So we've got Mr. Awesome, and the first thing all of our listeners want to know, of course, is how did you get the name Mr. Awesome? We know Mr. Charge Higher Prices, okay, right? But who gave that to you, man?
Yeah, so I was coming off stage. It was in Southern California, and I was coming off stage. People were like high-five me. Everyone's like, wants my book and grab my book and signatures and so forth. And there's this gentleman, Les Brown, and he looks at me, "You're Mr. Awesome."
That's awesome.
When Les Brown calls you Mr. Awesome, you
Take that.
market the heck out of it. Yeah, you're like, I'll keep that one.
And that's a huge compliment. I love listening to Les Brown. I mean, I
You got to
listen
be
so much.
hungry.
Oh man, his voice is so powerful, it's so moving, so amazing, and his story. I mean, if all of you have heard his story, he used to sleep in
Liberty City.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
just unbelievable, and where he went in his life, and he just believed it.
Maybe Brown's baby boy.
Yeah, the way he always finishes something, I love how smooth he is as a speaker. So, I mean, as a speaker, coming from the roots of Brian Tracy, right? Just Brian Tracy is somebody's fellow Canadian.
Yeah,
so,
Canadian,
right?
Nova Scotia.
So for me, there's just that connection right there, even though I don't know him. But
Oh, you will.
I appreciate that.
Good to know.
And Eat That Frog, like his book,
Yeah.
and the things that you probably learned. But seriously, for our listeners, look, Erik's going to tell you about what he does, but from what I've seen as the way other people are going to see him, you go around, you travel, you inspire people, you help fulfill people's dreams, and you learn from great people as well.
Sure.
So what brought you on this journey? Like, how did you even start this journey?
So it's kind of a funny story. So back a long time ago, my brother, he comes up to me and goes, "So what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Nothing." He goes, "Well, let's move to California."
From where?
From Vermont.
Okay.
From cold Vermont, right underneath. I lived about an hour away from Montreal.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, let's go to California. We're supposed to head to Southern California. We took both of our cars, and I bought a little pickup truck to bring my motorcycle. Cool. So we had like 3 vehicles cruising across country through the top route, like through Indiana, through all those different Dakotas. Got over to Reno. Lost all our money in Reno in one night and ended up sleeping. We had 1 tank of gas left.
Wow.
We ended up going and driving towards Southern Cal and ended up in San Francisco at the top of California Street. Gas was gone. We didn't know what to do. We're like, should we call our parents and get more money? We're like, nah, let's just, we'll tough it out here. So we toughed it out for a few years in San Francisco, which is awesome. So that was kind of like my break towards this way. And then my brother's like, so, a few years later, so what you doing? I go, nothing. It always starts like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, nothing. He goes, well, I want to learn some Spanish. I go, all right. I'm thinking, bookstore or, a class. He's like, no, let's move somewhere. So we moved to Puerto Rico. So literally, we moved to Puerto Rico for about a year. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So by then, a friend of mine is like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm living on the islands, kind of, you get island fever.
Sure.
So he's in Austin, Texas. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I go, nothing. He goes, well, come on over to Austin, Texas. So I cruise to Austin. This is the long story, by the way. So I'm almost done with it, though. So I get to Austin, Texas, and I'm waiting tables. And I'm at a place called Mezzaluna, and I waited tables with this gentleman that or waited on him. He was one of the managers of Brian Tracy's. And he's like, so what are you doing? I go, nothing. So that's how I met Brian Tracy. They ended up bringing me on and training me. And that was 20 years ago, this past January 5th.
But he must have seen something in you, or
Yeah.
what was that? Like, if you look back on that moment, what do you think you showed him without knowing you were showing it?
Yeah, so I showed him that I could be teachable, moldable, and that I was open. That was my attitude was amazing. So I would walk up, literally I'd walk up to any table and as a server. And no matter if there's like 3 people or 9 people, it doesn't matter. Normally a server will come up and say, hi, my name's so-and-so, can I get you a drink or whatever, right? Or, what can I start you off with? It's boring. So I decided to change it around. From day one, I would do this. I'd walk up, let's say there's 10 people at the table. I'd just start pointing, 1, 2, 3, and counting. And I'd count all 9 or 10 people, and I'd go, 10 tequila shots coming right up. That's what I would do. That was my icebreaker, and people loved it. So I guess I did that with Brian, and he's like, he didn't really drink, but he's like, I love that attitude. So I think it was just more an attitude. I think that if you've got a good demeanor, a good attitude, you can learn different techniques. And like Scott was saying, we all have great values of different things in our businesses, but sometimes it helps coming from an outside source to teach you or coach you as to what your good attributes are. So.
And that's so true, because we generally don't see that for ourselves.
Right.
It usually takes others to go, you're really, and you're like, well, I am?
Yeah.
We never really look at ourselves that way, or not often enough, which is unfortunate. But
totally agree.
With that whole transition, moving from Brian Tracy to today, and because you're also coaching, teaching, speaking, mentoring, I mean, what are some of the things that you can share with our listeners that you've discovered, just basic human nature, things that you typically discover time and time again in people that you can show those people that when they're ready to open their eyes about themselves, what do you keep seeing as a pattern in humanity?
Yeah, I see fear. I see fear for no reason. I see that a lot. I really think that a lot of people get in their own way. I talk about competition. At this level where a lot of us are at right now, there's no competition. There's more collaboration.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
and that's the whole thing. We were talking about my party the other day. You know, my party was really just a 2-hour, get together and meet some people and get to know and collaborate. And that's what it's all about. But people are fearful. People, at the end of the day, people don't care. Like, I used to worry about like how I looked. Is my hair okay or whatever? People don't care. People don't see.
Acid wash is coming back.
Oh man, this thing's awesome. What are you talking about? But people don't see the actual, what you're thinking they see, they don't see. They see something else.
You're so
and
right.
And I just think you got to get out of your own way. People are totally fearful of different things that they're not accomplishing. For me, I'm doing all these different things. I'm working on something called double. Again, I think I mentioned to you during lunch one day.
I don't recall.
So double for me is doubling my income from last year to this year again, and doubling the time off that I do it in.
Right.
So right now, this is my time off. This is my 6 months off, and I get so much done in my 6 months off because I'm out of my own way. I'm out of my own little mindset.
And what I love is that what you've learned in your journey, even with the speaking engagements that you put together now, Habitude Warrior, right? And habits and attitude. And that's how you found you can help people transform as well. What are your habits and what are your attitudes towards them? So how did you even put that together? What did you find along the journey that was just like habits and attitude?
That's a great story.
Right. And we only have a few minutes before we go to break, so it's a great story, but I want to be mindful for our listeners because we'll probably carry over into the fourth segment. But please share with them.
Yeah, so Habitude Warrior. So the word habitude, it's literally a cross between habits and attitude put together. So I was sitting with a gentleman named Jim Rohn.
Oh, yeah.
And Jim Rohn and I were hanging out in Houston, Texas. I think you were there. You introduced him on stage that day. And what happened was Jim and I were sitting down. Jim goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "What do you mean? What am I doing?" I'm smiling, and he says, "What do you do for Brian? You work for Brian, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Do you like it? What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a sales guy. I'm motivational." I was all pumped up, right? And he goes, "Yeah, but what do you really want to do?" And I was like, "That's a good point."
That's a heavy question coming from Jim Rohn.
And I told him, I said, "I want to help people with their habits and attitude." He goes, "You should put that together." So I literally did. I took it literal, and I put the whole word together.
That's so cool.
And that's how it started.
I think that's fascinating. Again, the way both, Mr. Charge Higher Prices, Mr. Awesome, how you guys were given those names by other people because of what people saw. And then knowing that Jim Rohn put a spin on how your future has panned out.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pretty fascinating.
It's funny. Scott and I have a name for you, by the way. We'll tell you after the show.
Really?
Just kidding.
After Facebook Live is off?
Just kidding.
So, yeah, and we're going to be going to break pretty quick. But how can people reach you before we go to break and come into our fourth segment?
Yeah. Charge higher prices / No, I'm just kidding.
/ laminate /
Yeah. Just go to
Lemonade.
Yeah, lemonade. That'd be a cool website. Just go to awesomeswanson.com. That's it.
Really?
Yeah, that's all my
AwesomeSwanson.com.
all my social media is there, everything.
Doesn't get any more simple than that. Well, again, I look forward to you guys hanging in there, coming back with us after the break, hearing some more incredible stories. I'm Stephen Wener of eXp Realty, and on 1170 AM, The Answer.